The original PlayStation actually went through several controllers in its time, starting out with something that was quite reminiscent of the Super Nintendo controller. It added 2 more shoulder buttons and some grips for your hands, but you can see the influence pretty clearly. But this was a great controller for 2D games, and some genres, like fighting games and certainly RPGs. But because of its limitations, it made 3D games a mixed bag, as there were early 3D games, like Jumping Flash, where the controls worked very well. It helped that this particular 3D game didn't require a great deal of precision for the most part. On a side note, it's kind of a shame this game and its sequel are widely forgotten these days. But other games were just awkward with this controller. As much as I love the Kingsfield games, they can be a little challenging to go back to. Their controls always took a little getting used to, but even more so now when we have expectations for how things are going to play in a first-person 3D setting. Third-person 3D games also suffer from this, arguably to an even worse degree. Mega Man Legends is a well-remembered and very charming game, but its controls aren't charming anyone. Now Sony would change the controller, first to the PlayStation Analog controller, before finally settling on the original DualShock. Both of these controllers gave the same options for actual controls, it's just that the DualShock added, well, rumble motors. And this led to a lot of games having much better controls, with Alien Resurrection being a first-person shooter that effectively had thoroughly modern-feeling controls, at least when played with an analog or DualShock controller, as it still had to have some kind of control scheme for someone that simply didn't have a DualShock. And it's just as bad as you're thinking, if not worse. But the problem is that the existence of the analog controllers didn't do anything for games that came out before those controllers existed. You can use one of them to play Mega Man Legends, but those sticks aren't gonna do anything. And it's this mid-generation change in controllers that really makes the PlayStation library in general difficult to go back to, as unless you're intimately familiar with its library and when specific games came out, you don't know what the control scheme is really going to be like on any given game. And even if you do know that kind of information, it's not like the second the analog controller released that all games embraced it and were compatible instantly. There was quite a bit of lag with games coming out that actually supported these controllers. And even when they did, there was quite a bit of growing pains in the controls actually becoming what we think of as the right controls. As today, we have expectations for exactly how each analog stick is going to be used. To get to this point, there was a lot of experimentation that happened. And a lot of that experimentation was done on the PlayStation 1, and even continued into the PlayStation 2. So as much as I truly love the PlayStation 1 and have so many great memories with it, I rarely can recommend to anyone to go back and play a PlayStation 1 game without some heavy caveats, with the exception of some RPGs, and the very small handful of 2D games that actually existed on the PlayStation. And I find it odd, because I do think with a little more care on the developer side, a lot of these problems could have been avoided. As Jumping Flash was a fairly early PlayStation game, but it got 3D controls with that early controller absolutely right. So it's not as if it was an impossible task, but looking at a lot of games in the PlayStation 1 library, it's clear that not everyone was quite up to that task. Please do subscribe, comment, like, and tell your friends.